Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Pink Thursday. And this is the final of the academic sessions for the MYP Parents as Partners. And of course, we will be having the well-being sessions with Miss Naomi and a few others coming up. Those should be advertised. If you're not sure, please come and ask. So today we have four presenters. We have Mr. Gary, who's in charge of design. Then we have Carlos, who is the arts head of faculty, followed by Ms. Fetu for individuals and societies. And then at the end, we'll have Stephen Buchanan to talk a little bit about service as action, to try and demystify the confusion that surrounds the expectations. So just things that are coming up. Please remember next week, Tuesday, you should be receiving your child's interim one report, which will, as I said before, is simply a summary of their subjects as well as one of four categories. So the teacher is simply rating their current performance, not with a number, with a descriptor. And then you can bring those along the following week on the 12th and 13th to the three-way conferences. And there should be a lot to talk about. It's been a very busy start to the year, but hopefully positive in most respects. So that's enough from me, and over to Gary Hayes, Head of Design.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gary Hayes, and I'm the Head of Design here at Raha International School. I'm going to try and talk you through this subject as best as I can, because I know many parents tend to find this quite difficult to understand, but I'll try and make it as clear as possible. Design is split into two areas. There's digital design and there's product design. So product design is based within the workshop, and it's based with tools and trying to make an actual physical product. Digital design is all within the digital world, and you go down routes like coding, animation, you're working solely on the laptop, and you're not making anything physical whatsoever. So looking at grade 6 is just the beginning of design, and we try to teach them in product design about the main skills to do with just tools alone. So we try to teach them some health and safety, get them to research health and safety, all of the tools that they're going to be using, but we do give them a lot of free roam on what they're going to make. So they're going to make a desk organizer in grade 6 product design, but they get to design it completely themselves. They have some small limitations that we try to keep with size and stuff like that, but nothing too difficult. Digital design, grade 6s are using a very basic coding program called Scratch, and they try to make an educational game. That's their main objective. So I teach them all about coding, the basics of it, how it works, and then it's up to them to come up with an idea to do with an educational video game. Grades 6, 7, 8, 9, before 10 is always split into two parts. It is product design and digital, so it depends at the beginning of the year which they're going to do and which carousel they're on. So what happens is they'll do half the year in product or half the year in digital, and then they'll swap over and they'll do the other half so that they kind of get a taste of both of the subjects and see which one they prefer. Grade 7 is completely based around the idea of eco-design and trying to be sustainable and trying to help them to understand how they can be helpful to the environment. Yes? Hello? Yeah, there seems to be an echo. Okay. Once again, grade 7 is to do with eco-design, and it's completely to do with sustainability. It's all to do with trying to reuse, reduce, recycle, and get the kids to understand how important it is to try and upcycle a product. So grade 7 product design, they try to make a clock. The clock is completely designed by them, and they can use any recycled products they want. So it's completely up to them how they're going to design it. They can bring stuff from home. We give them a limited amount of wood to try and make sure that they do come up with a very aesthetically pleasing design, but the idea is to try and find some reusable items that it can actually use. In digital design, they're actually creating an eco-friendly house. They have to 3D model it, and they have to come up with the idea of the house, what size it's going to be, who the customer would be for this house, how they could market it toward this type of person. So it's kind of getting them around the idea of completely tailoring a product toward a certain type of person. Once it gets to grade 8, this is the middle of MIP, we try to really challenge them as much as we possibly can. So grade 6 and 7 is building up their skills. Grade 8 is trying to actually utilize these skills as best as we possibly can. So these 2 units are quite difficult. Product design is all to do with 3D modeling a Formula 1 car. So we worked with Yas Marina, and they have Formula 1 in schools, and we took that curriculum and we embedded it into our curriculum so that they actually have to understand aerodynamics, they have to understand scale, and they make a model Formula 1 car online. They don't use the workshop this year at all. The reason for that is we're trying to get them to understand that they need to understand 3D modeling skills, because many times they're not actually going to make the product themselves, they're going to send it to somebody else. So this is an IDU with math, and they have to use scale, and they have to ask a lot of questions to their math teacher, and they have to prove that they have actually researched a lot of math in their aerodynamics. They model that on a modeling software called Onshape. It's all online. We provide them with a huge number of tutorials and step-by-step guides. When they switch over to digital design, they do 2D stop motion or 3D animation. The idea behind this is there's not many schools in the UAE, or not many schools in general, that ever teach animation skills. So we thought it might be a nice niche for grade 8s to actually give this a try. It might be something that they might want to look into further down the road, and it's definitely a really helpful area for digital designers to actually understand, because it always relates back to movies, cartoons, games, all of those areas. So we like to see if they're actually really interested in this area. Grade 9, we're trying to make these students completely individual as much as we can. So we changed the unit in product design this year for grade 9ers. Last year was a mini golf course. We felt like it wasn't building up enough of their skills. So this year, we've made it completely toward them and made it try as much individual work as possible. So what they do is, it's kind of like an IKEA-based project. They have to make a technology accessories unit for their nightstand that holds their smartwatch, their phone, their AirPods. But the limitations are they have to design it online themselves. They have to make a project that will slot together and can be taken apart and does not need to be glued. So there is a lot of thinking in this. There is a lot of understanding what areas need to be really considered. And we've had a lot of students really challenged by this, and we really need to challenge their thinking at this age in order for them to be really equipped for DP design. When they go into digital design, they are also really challenged. They start to do some really difficult coding. They're doing HTML, they're making a website, and they really have to go through a lot of steps to understand this coding software. It's a difficult coding language, but it's the best for a beginner. Any students that have done this previously get a chance to use other coding softwares, and any students that are finding it extremely difficult, we do have easier coding softwares for them to use. So there is a lot of differentiation in this year to try and make sure that they are really fully challenged. In grade 10, the IB dictates that it needs to be completely individual. So we have tried to make it as completely individual as we possibly can. So it really relates in product design to the grade 9 unit, in that they're going to make something that is laser cut, that has to actually solve a problem. However, we do not give them a design, we do not give them a brief. We just tell them they need to solve a problem, they need to find what the problem is, and they need to find a way to solve it. So it's completely up to them to look around their home, to look around their community, come up with an issue, find the problem, and then try and solve it within our workshop. In digital design, the same thing applies. It's completely individual. They're actually using their skills now to the best of their ability, and they are designing and marketing their media skills. So, for example, we have students that are making a website. They're making a website that will promote a certain skill of theirs. So we have students that want to become personal trainers. They're making websites that show videos of how to actually do certain exercises or certain sports very well and that they know very well from. So they go and speak to their PE teachers. That is one example that has been really successful in the past. And we have other students that want to understand how to create a blog. It's completely up to them to choose what they would like to do, and then we just facilitate it. We are very lucky that once they get to DP now, they have the choice to rather do product design or digital design. I didn't think it'd be suitable today to go into the particulars of both the subjects. They are both very difficult subjects, so I would really suggest that any student that comes at grade 10 would sit down with us and actually talk to us about their choice so that we can tell them the particulars of what's involved. We normally have a meeting prior to them choosing this subject or choosing any subject for DP so that they're fully aware, because it is completely different to the MYP. But what I did think it'd be useful to know would be, if they were going to go down this path, what kind of career would they be looking at the end of it? They are both extremely good subjects. They are very difficult, but they are extremely rewarding, and there's a huge amount of careers in these. These are very small amounts. So when you go down the design technology route, it's talking about building a product from raw all the ways to marketing it as a business. So if your son or daughter ever wanted to become an entrepreneur, they would have an awful lot of skills in this, because it teaches them thoroughly how to look through a product. Computer science goes down the idea of networks, servers, hardware and software components. So that would be to do completely with computers. It is nothing else. That is a very, very dense course, and it is extremely linked to math. So if they're not very good at math, that may not be a choice for them, because it would be very difficult, and we don't want to see them struggle inside it. Every year, every carousel, every half year when they're doing the subject, they are assessed on 4 criteria. Criterion A, B, C, and D. Each one runs from about 2 to maybe 8 weeks, the largest being C. So first, in Criterion A, they do a lot of research. They are not making anything, they're just researching the problem, the issue. In B, they're actually sketching or 3D modeling some design ideas, coming up with some things that they think would actually work for this solution. C, they're actually making, so they're inside in the workshop, or they're fully on their computer, completely making whatever it is idea that they have come up with. And then Criterion D, they're reflecting and evaluating the product and seeing, if I was to make this again, what would be the issues that I would have to resolve. Everything that we do is completely through Manage Back. We're kind of unique in that we don't have any paperwork whatsoever. The student is always directed to Manage Back for their reports, for their feedback, for anything that they may need, files or resources-wise. Everything is up there for them. And they do peer feedback, which would be written down inside in class. However, they do get complete feedback on Manage Back to do with their report or their grade. Grade 6 alone are allowed to get a second chance at their criterion if they have followed everything that we've asked them to do in class. If they get a grade that they're unhappy with, obviously it's a very difficult time for them at the beginning because they're transitioning in. So if they follow everything in class, they're more than welcome to go try it again over a period of 48 hours after they get their grades and after they get their feedback, and they can come back with a new assignment and we'll regrade it for them again. We're not trying to catch them out. We want to make sure that they're actually fully set up. So this has proved really successful with the grade 6s. So please encourage them, if they do get an assignment back, that they are allowed to improve it if they choose to. And then I know, being the head of design now for a number of years, that it's quite difficult for any parents to help with our subject at home because it's quite a difficult concept. One of the things I do want you to really keep in mind is we don't tend to give homework. It's not something we are really in the habit of doing. The reason for that is we give them a huge amount of time in class, and we want to make sure that they're giving us quality over quantity. So any student that comes in with huge amounts of words or huge amounts of pages, that's actually frowned upon with us, because once you get to the DP level, you are limited on the amount of words and pages, so we don't want to get them into the habit of doing that. Anything that they do at home is extended classwork. It's stuff that maybe they didn't finish in class. If your son or daughter is coming home with huge amounts of homework, that probably refers back to the fact that they may not be managing their time very well in class, and that is something that you're more than welcome to email their teacher about, or their teacher might actually email you first, because that's something we don't want. It should be a maximum of 20 to 30 minutes if they have extended class time up in the older years. Grade 6, 7, 8 generally don't tend to have an awful lot at home. And that's it. Do I have any questions? Is there anything that I can answer for you today? Yes?
Can I just pass you the mic? Sorry. You can be the echoey one.
I think my daughter, she's in grade 6, and first time she's exposed to design, and always I feel she's afraid from the design class. And next week maybe they will have an exam.
So in our subject, we don't have any sit-down exams.
No.
Those 4 criteria are worked over a number of weeks, and then they just hand it in.
Yeah,
There's never an exam as such.
Okay. She was panicked, but I think at the end she was satisfied with her grade. But they don't study for the design.
No, they're coming into class and they're just doing continuous work, and that goes toward a portfolio, and that's it.
What coding software and design software are they using, and can they opt to use other?
They can, yeah, we encourage them to use others if they want to. It's completely up to them. I would suggest that they speak to the teacher first, just so the teacher is aware if they feel they're fully capable of it, or if the time constraints will actually allow them to fully develop in that coding software. Grade 6 is Scratch. That's just a block-based, they don't write anything. Grade 8, the animation software is Alice, or if they want to go higher, it's Maya. Maya is one that's used in industry. It is actually used for game development and film development. And then once they get to grade 9 and grade 10, it's HTML. They can branch into Java if they would like to do computer science, but we don't really suggest it because they don't have an awful lot of time to go developing that as a language. No, we don't use the Adobe Suite. The reason being is it's quite a costly thing to have every month, and we don't expect the child to have to pay for anything. So I spend my time trying to find free software for them to use. Can I answer any other questions?
Just on the topic of homework that Gary was talking about, we're actually currently doing a survey from grade 6 to 10 on homework, getting as many students as possible to record what they are doing each night for a week. And I'm collecting as much data as possible, and actually going to get some students to process some of the data as a services action activity. So we'll see what comes out from that, and see if teachers' perceptions and students' perceptions are matching up at all. There will be obviously massive ranges from what I've seen so far, but I think it's something that we need to do, and it should be quite interesting. Can I also add, for design, I know I mentioned before, but if you have a grade 9 child, they will be making a decision for next year. So if you're in grade 8 at the moment, please start thinking. Design is a wonderful subject, and I think it's a subject that has many skills for the future, jobs that we don't even know exist yet, and it's a great subject to be in. However, students do need to make choices, so in grade 9, they will decide in grade 10 if they want to do 2 sciences and design, or 2 sciences and art and no design, or 1 science, art and design, all 3 options, or 1 science and 2 arts and no design. So there's basically 4 permutations. This will be explained, of course, in more detail. And on the 12th of November, as I mentioned, there is a session for all grade 9 parents and students here, presented by the science department, explaining about their subjects, and then the students can start to think if they are more sciencey or arty, design. It's tricky, but the decision has to be made, so we'll try and give them as much information as possible. Any more questions for Mr. Gary? No. The choices are for grade 10, so we are doing the initial information sessions now. They'll do initial choices, probably just before the winter break, and then the final selection will only take place around March time. Grade 9 into 10. There's no selections in grade 8 apart from the arts, which Mr. Carlos will talk about now.
Mr. Vaughan. Just to conclude, I'd like to think that we're a very welcoming department. So what I would suggest is if you have any issues whatsoever, please drop the teacher an email or just make an appointment to come in and see them. We'll be more than helpful. If there's anything that we can help with at all, please just let us know. Your teacher will definitely help you out. So please just let them know. Thank you very much and have a nice day.
Here we go. Good morning. Hi, my name is Mr. Carlos, and I'll be telling you a little bit about the arts department and our curriculum. This is our team. They're a fun bunch. Ivan, do I point here or there? Towards my left. There we go. Okay. In grades 6 through 8, okay, each grade has one unit in each art discipline. We have 3 different art disciplines. We have visual arts, music, and drama. That means that students rotate in a carousel or a 12-week-long carousel, and they complete one unit in each discipline. So students in grade 6 will complete one unit in music, one unit in drama, and one unit in visual arts. The titles of the units are up here. Yes, sir. Closer. Can you hear me okay? Okay, so the way that the units are structured, students are coming from PYP with some music experience, but not necessarily any drama experience. They do have visual arts and music and PYP, but not drama. Now, they actually do a lot of drama through ECPs and the big productions, but not in the classroom. So this is basically the only new addition here. And then the progression, they get a little bit more complex each time. In grade 6, they start out with basic vocab and elements of the arts, and then they scaffold into more conceptual work. Whoa. Sorry. Here we go. So that's what the disciplines look like. In visual arts, from last year, they started something really, really cool with clay. Clay used to be only used for DP, but now we've brought it down to grade 6, and it's working out fantastic. Students are making these little clay pieces that get fired, and then they get glazed, and they have an absolute blast with them. It's a lot of work, it's very messy, but it's worth it. In music, they begin reading and writing music, and in drama, they're doing jumping around and a lot of stuff. Grade 7 visual arts, they do a unit titled The Selfie, and it's looking at the difference between a selfie and a portrait. And the difference in there is the conceptual approach to it and in terms of meaning of the image. In drama, they begin to have a little bit more ownership, and that's the progression throughout the years. And then in music, they start an instrument. Whoa, what is it? We were talking about choices earlier, right before I started. And the arts has the first choice making for an entire cohort. At the end of grade 8, students have to choose which arts discipline they will focus on. So grades 6 through 8, it's carousel. They've experienced all 3 arts disciplines. And the purpose of this is to give them a little taster or a little experience on what that looks like. And then at the end of grade 8, they have to choose which discipline they'd like to focus on. That comes with a new choice of photography. This is at the end of grade 8, okay? Usually students give their first two options, and of course we try to accommodate everyone's first option. Most of the times it works. At the end, there could be a handful that teachers intervene because they would see more potential of a student in a certain discipline. And also to avoid cliques. Students tend to gravitate to where their buddies are, not necessarily where their strengths or their interest really lies. Okay, so in grade, in grade 9 and 10, students complete, well, it's a whole year course, so then they complete 3 to 4 units in each discipline. The important thing to notice in grade 9 is that we have an IDU, an interdisciplinary unit, and we do this with English. And in English, they read Macbeth. That's a play, and then that's where we start. Once they finish the play in English, our project begins, and it's the entire cohort. So we get the entire grade 9 down here, and we have a conversation about the themes in the play. So how was the theme of deceit portrayed in the play? How was betrayal depicted in the play? So we focus on these themes, and then we make a trailer for a new movie based on one of those topics or themes that were present in the play. Maybe you have seen some of these before. They tend to be a little bit gory, but they're so much fun, and they absolutely love this project. It's been a great success for the last 2 years that we've been running it. I already know that they're looking forward to it because I keep asking when we're starting video. So this is an entire cohort project. That means that students work in teams of about 6 to 8 per team, and the teams, we organize them based on their English class. So for 6 lessons, we sort of freeze the arts curriculum and we focus on this project. And those lessons are completely dedicated to, scripting, storyboarding, shooting, and editing this project. So each team has students from all of the arts disciplines. So one team will have students from music, students from photography, students from visual arts, and students from drama. The idea is that the students from drama are in front of the camera, students from photography are behind the camera, sound students are taking full ownership of the sound component, and the visual arts students are making the visual campaign and face of the project. So it usually looks like the starting titles and end titles. In grade 10, the thing to notice is the issue of ownership and relevance. So we try to make grade 10 projects based or have like real life applications. So for example, in media, we're looking at documentary and we're looking at real life issues and things that are in our control to either express an opinion or to say something about. Similarly, in visual arts, they do a unit based on sustainability and recycling, and they use these materials to create a sculpture. In music, they have the orchestra, and in drama, they have an education unit. That's also very successful. I've already told you about the interdisciplinary. That's sort of what it looks like. Oops. So that's grade 10. We also have a unit on film noir for media arts or photography. Pretty fun. Okay, the criteria. There it goes. Criteria is consistent through all the years. We have criterion A, B, C, and D, knowledge and understanding, skills, creative thinking and responding. What changes throughout year 1, 3, and 5 is the depth of what this means. So year 6 students, or year 1 students, grade 6, they have the same criteria, but at a much more simplified level in language. Year 3, so at the end of grade 7 and grade 8, they start the year 3 criteria, which is a little bit more complex. And then 9 and 10, they use the MYP criteria, like the year 5 criteria, which is more complex. Okay, how can you support? Communication. Communicate with the students or your child and the teacher. Okay, ask them what they're doing. Ask them to show you what they're doing. If there are any questions, then we ask the teacher. We're pretty approachable. We live in this building. We're here. Questions?
Can you tell everyone about our wonderful visitor we had yesterday?
Okay, so yesterday we had a very special guest, but that was for film studies in grade 11. So from this year, we started a continuation of what is now photography, media arts, into the DP, and that is film studies. It's its own DP course. And yesterday we had a guest, Robert Shea, who is the founder of New Line Cinema. They produced Lord of the Rings, The Mask, Nightmare on Elm Street, which is screening tonight actually at Vox Cinema. And this came through a partnership or a relationship that we have with Film Independent, and also the US Embassy. They help us coordinate events and presenters. They've also done it last year for the Raja Film Oscars. And it was an amazing experience for students to hear from an actual veteran in the field. We had 15 grade 10s, and the film studies class, it's only 6 students this year. But the idea is to build that class a little bit more. It's the first time that it's running, so we had to start somewhere.
Okay, so salam alaikum, kia ora and welcome. My name is Betu Seymour, as Mr. Vaughan politely pointed out to you. I have been at Raha, this is my 8th year at Raha, and I've been teaching the IB program for at least 10, 11 years. Okay, so I've come with a big background of knowledge in regards to the humanities department, but also within the English department. Today, we are here to talk about the MYP program for the Individuals and Societies department. Some people refer to it as humanities because individuals and societies, people don't understand what that means outside of the IB program. So we are often referred back to as the humanities department. Okay, moving forward. So in our grade 6 to 9 grade level years, we generally teach history and geography. So those are the only 2 subjects that we will go through and we will teach to our grade 6 to 9. Within the history unit, it is a study of the past events, particularly in human affairs. Now what we look at is we try to look at European history, and we also like to develop their knowledge about different conflicts that have happened over the years. In our geography unit, there are usually 3 branches of geography, and they are covered in our MYP unit. Those 3 branches are environmental geography, human geography, and physical geography. So environmental is the interaction between humans and the natural world. Human, that deals with the study of people and their communities, cultures, economies, and interactions with the environment. And the physical one is about the natural processes of Earth, tectonic plates, climates, and biomes. So within the grade 6 to 9 MYP criterion, there are usually 3 units of work. And it will be a combination of either 2 history and 1 geography, or it may be a combination of 2 geography and 1 history. Within each of those 3 units, so 3 units per year, we will try to formally assess them, like a summative assessment, 2 times for each unit. So there's approximately 6 units, 6 assessments for the students. And before they get to their summative assessments, we have formative assessments. What that means is just like there are sometimes teachers will create activities that will develop the knowledge and the skill of the student in preparation towards the summative assessment task. During that time, teachers will often give a lot of oral feedback, or they'll get the students to peer assess or self-assess themselves. This is all in build-up. Okay. The assessments can be a combination of in-class assessments and or take-home. So take-home means it's like a research project that they will have to go away and that they will have to research information and they'll have to bring it back and put it together. We tend to, from like grade 8 to grade 9 to grade 10, we like to have more in-class assessments, and that there is to prepare the students for the DP, because in the DP, it's all about the examination process. So we've reduced the amount of take-home assessments in grade 9 and 10 especially. Okay, so, and a lot of these courses, if you have a look at the European history, ancient civilization, the Roman Empire, Middle Ages, Renaissance, we like to scale things up. It's all about European history, but as a teacher, I can refer back to other bits and pieces of information over the different grade levels. So as an example, if I'm currently teaching grade 9, I'm currently teaching the Russian Revolution. Today I was talking to them about how some of the peasants in Russia in 1906, let's say, needed to have internal passports, and they needed to register with the police if they were going to go outside of their village or their area. And I can liken that back to the Middle Ages. So I will say to the students, remember in grade 7 when we were looking at the peasants in Middle Ages, and I said, and how the peasants were not allowed to leave their villages unless they had the permission of the knight. So when we are creating these units of work, we are trying to scale it so that we can often refer the students back to other things that they have covered in previous years. Okay? And at the same time, we are trying to go over certain concepts a number of times. So if we come down to the conflicts, India's road towards independence, this could be the first time that students have heard the word industrialization or even the words infrastructure. So they're not too sure what they mean, but as we scale up and we go into the Russian Revolution, we rehash that same concept again. We were talking about how Russia lacked industrialization, and that put them on the back foot in comparison to other superpower countries at the time. Also, we go through again with infrastructure and how infrastructure is important for a developing country. Okay? So, when it comes to grade 10, grade 6 to grade 9, they have only had 3 units, made up of a combination of either 2 history and 1 geography, or 2 geography and 1 history. When it comes to grade 10, we offer them 4 units of work because they are now heading into the DP. So they will still have your standard history and geography courses within the academic year, but now we will also introduce them to psychology. Okay, and then we'll also introduce them to business studies / economics. So within that year, we're just trying to give them a snapshot of what psychology courses might involve. And it's just to open their view up to, it's not just about history, it's not just about geography. What is psychology about? And also with business studies, it's a quick snapshot into business studies and economics. This is to help them once they head into DP that they have been exposed to comments such as push and pull factors in economics. They know about GDP, they know about HDI, the Human Dex Index, the Human Development Index, and also the same again within psychology. There are a lot of terms that the students need to kind of like be exposed to in grade 10 before they move up and into DP. It just helps them along, especially as they are heading into the DP. Soon they are going to start making choice selections. And the humanities department moves from being the humanities department into what we classify as group 3 for the DP program. I don't want to go too much into that, but it just means that the students can make a more informed decision about where they see their future careers. Okay. So just like everybody else has told you over the past couple of weeks, all of the different subject areas, they have 4 criterion. Ours is very similar to a lot of the others: knowing and understanding, investigation, communication, and thinking critically. So in criterion A, it's the student's ability to demonstrate knowledge and understanding of concepts, taught through descriptions, explanations, and examples. Criterion B, the student's ability to investigate, create an action plan, use a range of sources, and to reflect on that investigation process. Criterion C is about the way that they communicate and present that information back to us. We take a lot of different forms of presentations, and I'll go on to that straight after I've finished with the marking rubric. And then criterion D is the student's ability to creatively and critically explore concepts discussed in class. Thinking critically is probably one of our most difficult skills to teach the students at this stage, and it's always been a challenging one for them. And it's challenging because we're asking them to develop their own way of thinking about an idea and to come up with their own independent thought on it. So we give them lots of ideas, we try to show them how to do that, but it's a process that takes a little bit of time and patience with our students. Okay, moving along, coming to our assessment formats. With the assessment formats, as I mentioned before, in the humanities department, we are heavily skills-based. Okay, they have to be able to perform a number of different humanities skills, and then they also need to be able to combine those skills with content, with the knowledge. So an assessment could look in the junior years just their ability to be able to map and constructing timelines. They still do it up there in grade 11, don't get me wrong. I was witness to some of my ex-grade 11 students trying to create a timeline for World War I. And I had to go back in and talk with them and say, hey, remember, it's equal intervals, it's equal time frames, it's up, it's down, it's an appropriate title. And they looked beautiful. All right. Sometimes we have a different range of presentations. We do like to give oral presentations. We do like, with the take-home assessments, which is usually an investigation, we will ask the students to either create a poster, create a PowerPoint, create a newspaper article where they will stand and they will deliver the information to the class. We know it's a very scary process, but we also know that in real life we do have to stand, like I'm shaking today, in front of you as peers. We have to stand and we have to be able to present information to people in a logical manner. So we not only have oral presentations, like I said, we can have visual presentations. So again, it can be in the form of a PowerPoint, in the form of a poster, in the form of a brochure, in the form of just like a PowerPoint slide. Written presentations, they can take a lot of different formats: analytical reports, essays, critical thinking paragraphs. They need to have the skill, the written expression, to be able to structure these in the way that we want them to be structured. Most of the time with a critical thinking paragraph, it's just we try to double up with the English department. They use an acronym called PEEL, P-E-E-L, and we also use an acronym, it's called SEER, S-E-E-R. They both mean exactly the same thing, and I also inform the students that they mean exactly the same, having taught both in the English department and also here in the humanities department. Research is a big thing that the humanities department and the science department, we both take that up quite quite a lot because they are going in, they are trying to find sources, they are trying to find out whether this source is appropriate to use, they have to figure out how to collate the information, and then they have to also know how to weave that source into a critical thinking paragraph. What I'm meaning about that is like using in-text citations. They also have to be able to, at the end of any research project, be able to give MLA format back to us. It's not a copy and a link of a website, but it is an actual formatted structure thing that they are assessed on as well. Critical thinking, this here leads to them looking at understanding different perspectives. So, for example, if we had deforestation, which is one of our units in grade 8, okay, we are cutting down the Amazon rainforest, and there are about 15 different perspectives, for and against, and all of them in their own way are right. But you've got to be able to determine which side that you want to take to build the argument with. Also, we're trying to teach the students about subjective and objective, and that can also take place just merely in the collation of information that I'm getting from my sources. I can be very subjective in the way that I am pulling particular types of information out of a source and delivering it in my critical thinking essay. Different points of view and analysing sources using the OPVL. This is a skill that we do teach solely in the Humanities Department. This OPVL is something that your grade 10 students use in their personal project. They have to be able to demonstrate that. So they often come back to the Humanities Department to ask just for a review. How does that work again? But we constantly teach it throughout the grade levels. Moving down MYP, our progression. Just like anything else over here, there has to be a progression. The marking rubrics reflect subtle yet significant progressions as students are constantly challenged and tested. For example, if you just have a look at criterion B, this is our investigation, thoroughly reflects on a research project, provides detailed evaluation, and then thoroughly evaluates an investigation. So it's subtle, but it does make them step up, and it does challenge them a lot more. The underlying words are just trying to show you how it's scaled up accurately, uses a range of terminology accurately, uses a range of terminology effectively. Subtle little differences, but they are a big jump for some students to be able to demonstrate that year after year. All right. Moving forth, I'm just going to, this was just something that I found about what happens in an MYP classroom. So all of this sort of stuff, we as teachers are always constantly trying to provide lessons that are effective and consistent in addressing individual student skills, knowledge, language proficiency, and special education needs. So these are lots of different things that happen within our classrooms on a day-to-day basis. We do ask for the students to interdisciplinary connections. I'm always referring back to, let's say the English department, because I was in the English department, but right now I am teaching grade 10 psychology, and I'm talking to them about research methods. So I'll refer back to the science department, and I'll say to them, when you were in grade 8 and you were doing your investigation for grade 8, what's an independent variable, what's a dependent variable? Same thing that happens over here in psychology. You call it a hypothesis, we call it over here the theory. So I'm always trying to make connections back so that they can see humanities is not a standalone subject, that we do link into other subjects regularly and often. It's just to make them aware. Okay, so moving down now, heading into the diploma program. We offer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We really offer 5 course subjects that they can move from grade 10 and into the DP Group 3. The ESS, which stands for Environmental Systems and Societies, that is a standard level course, and that course is generally, in the past it's been between both the Humanities Department and the Science Department, but currently the Science Department only address the ESS, Environmental Systems and Societies. All the others, they're covered within our department. Okay, supporting your child. Regular revision of concepts taught in class by using Cornell notes. I am trying to implement with our teachers the use of ruling up a page, it's known as the Cornell Notes page, as an effective learning strategy. I still use it in my grade 9 and 10 classes, and I say to them that you will still use it, you could still use it in your DP courses and even out into the university level. I find that it is a good tool that if you want to at night for the students, I'll say, here's the record section, you can cover that section and use your key terms in your reduced section to recall information. Okay, so that's something that we're trying to use. Maybe ask your child if they are using Cornell notes within their learning practices. Also, be mindful, look at manage back to monitor messages, open files, check assessment dates, so that it's not always the student saying, yes, Mum, I have got it. You can also go in and you can have a look around as well. See if there are any messages from us as teachers. I'm not too sure if you have that ability to see the teacher messages, but manage back is our tool. That's where we communicate to your child. That's where we put all of the assessments. And definitely have open discussions at home. Sometimes if we want to sit around the dinner table, how was your day? What did you do? What are you currently learning in? What does that mean? And if you think that the child is a little bit vague on what is industrialization, and you know a little bit about industrialization, then maybe you can also, give them a couple extra examples. And also, what kind of skills are you learning? Oh, we have to stand up and do a presentation. Wow, that's my job, that's what I do. Here are some skills, here are some strategies to help you if you're feeling uneasy with standing in front of your peers. We try to give them all of those as well in the classroom, but again, they like to hear from you as well as the parent. And the other thing for me is patience to develop the skills, especially when they are transitioning in between the MYP rubric. Meaning that when you go from a grade 8 up and into a grade 9, you could have finished on a grade 8 at a 6. When you come into grade 9, the biggest transition is the marking rubric has moved up a lot in scale to almost a grade 10 level. And what I say to the students is that you haven't quite learnt all of the skills needed to keep you at a 6, especially on your first assessment, okay? And it may take you a little bit of time to adjust to the new curriculum and to adjust to what the teachers are trying to show you. Is that okay? So just have a little bit of patience, that developing skills is an art and it does take patience and time. But we as teachers, we are here to support your children and on their academic journey. Okay? All right. Great. Thank you.
Sorry. Can you just go back to that previous slide for a sec, please? Thanks.
Which one?
The previous slide. No, the second last one. I think Fetu articulated very nicely the last point there. So that applies in all subjects. I'm not sure how clear that was made by all the heads of faculty. So there is quite a big difference between a grade 6, 8, and 10 rubric. The grade 6s have their own. The grade 7s and 8s use a particular rubric, and the 9s and 10s use a particular rubric. And it is different. It increases in complexity, in sophistication, in terms of the wording for the different strands. Also, Ms. Fetu referred to Cornell notes. So anyone that works in or has worked in research or academia, I mean, this has been around for years and years and years, but it has been proven with lots and lots of evidence that Cornell notes does improve retention of work and understanding of the skills. So if you don't know what Cornell notes are, please have a look, get your children to chat about it with you. Not only formally in their classrooms, but if they're doing some revision for an assessment, they can quickly design a Cornell notes page and their revision will be so much higher in quality. And I can't believe I never used it when I was at school. All those hours spent with too much coffee and not enough sleep, and I didn't use Cornell notes. What else? You mentioned yes, skills in general. Did you want to say something? Yeah.
12 hours, try to recall the information, and the next 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, the retention of that information sticks with them a lot longer. So I say to them, a lot of the time I personally don't issue a lot of homework, but I'll say that activity will only take you 5 minutes, each night. If you trial that, you'll understand that there's a lot more, like you will retain the information a lot more. Sorry.
I would just say, in terms of the skill side of things, which is the whole bread and butter of the MYP and the DP, I think it shines through more in your subject than probably most. If you think back to when you were at school learning history or geography, those pages and pages and pages of facts that you had to recall so that you could regurgitate it, it didn't exactly instill a love for the subject necessarily. I think understanding a skill like getting deeply into conflict and then applying that in different areas because you have the skills to synthesize the information, it's preparing students for the real world. They don't just forget it. And I think the only geography I remember is when we're driving around and I see a conical hill or an oxbow lake or something. Oh, I remember that. But they go a lot deeper these days. Questions? Nope. Okay.
Can you just summarize what is the kernel nodes? Something so we don't need to investigate. Is it an app? Is it a way to take notes? I have no clue.
Yeah. Sorry. So Cornell notes. So when the students, within their notebook, I just get them to roll up 2 lines in their notebook. And that means that it's been sectioned. The notebook's been sectioned. And there are usually what they call 5 R's that we try, like I try to teach the students. And the first column over here is called the reduced section. I should have given an example, sorry. So there's a reduced section, there's a record section, and there's a reflection section. So when the words that you put into the reduced section are just key terms. It could be a name like Peter Stolypin, it could be a date, it could be a location. And then in the record section, especially with my grade 9 and 10 students, I'll say to them that they're not allowed to create sentences, but just bullet points. So I'm trying to get them to here's the name Peter Stolypin, what kind of bullet points do I need to have off that? Okay? So it could be that he was the first Prime Minister, that he created the land reforms, that he's AKA known as Stolypin's necktie. That meant that he was executing people that disobeyed or were anti-Tsar, anti-government. The reflection section is, they've also got another sheet of paper that says, what did I learn today? How do I know what I've learnt? What am I still confused about? So they can choose what kind of note that they put down in the reflection section. I learned about how Peter Stolypin was a mean man who used to execute people on the spot. He was also known, so they can recap, or they can write a reflection, or if they're still confused about something. What I mean by covering is that, like when they go home, they put a cover, just a piece of paper over the record section where all the main bullet points are. And they try to go to the reduced section where all the terms are to recall what was the information underneath the paper. And all they do, if they've forgotten, is they pull it aside, they have a look, okay, bring it back. And that's about that retention of information. And that's why in grade 9 and 10, I don't like for them to write in complete sentences because there's too many words. So I always try and tell them, take out any of the insignificant words and just keep facts. Keep it small, keep it simple, so that you can retain more information. Is that okay? Yeah, I've been using it for years, and I'm trying to get the grade 6 to 8 teachers to also include it. And I'll also say to some of the grade 6 students, because they're like, oh, this is too baby. And I'm like, my 9s and 10s use it, So I always try to encourage them to, it's not for you thinking that you're babies and you can't take notes. No, it's for all academic students that are wanting to learn and retain information. Is that okay? All right, thank you.
Thanks so much, Ms. Fetu. So we have Mr. Stephen Buchanan, who oversees 786 students to complete all their service action requirements in the MYP. Over to you, sir.
Good morning. Could I sit down? Is that all right? So service action in MYP, just to clear confusion. Service action is in the MYP, and CAS, or Creativity Activity Service, is in the DP. Service action in MYP doesn't really count for anything, but it's preparing students for CAS in DP, which does count a great deal. So and some people think in MYP, why are we doing service action? Why is it important? I'm not being graded for it. But if we look at the IB wheel, it's right pretty much, I like to say, in the core. We have the learner profile, the global context, but right outside of that, service action. So it's right at the core of the IB curriculum. And what it does is that we, in MYP, we're helping students become more caring, risk takers, and being more balanced students by having them help their community, help not just the school community, but the wider community, and hopefully, in some cases, the international community, by doing various things such as volunteering, helping others, teaching others, and there's a variety of activities. And we always encourage students to do things that they're interested in doing, something that's in their hobbies or in their likes or involved in their sports or in their arts, something that they can get really involved in. In grades 6, 7, 8, in the last few years, I guess the last 3, 4 years, we've embedded the service action into the curriculum. So for grades 6, 7, 8, it's much easier for them to get the service action requirement accomplished because it's done in a class. For grade 6, it's done in science class. So I work with the 3 science teachers to get that done in grade 6. And so I will go into the class and make sure that the grade 6s understand service action, and we, on ManageBack, do it together so that it gets done in grade 6. Last year they did a recycling plastic awareness campaign in grade 6 that was quite successful, and hopefully they're going to continue that this year. It's going to start, I think, right after the winter break. In grade 7, this year we're changing it. Last year it was missed altogether, but the years before it was in humanities. This year we're going to do it in English. Grade 7s go down to the PYP. They return to PYP and they interview students in whichever grade they prefer, and they find out what those students would like to see in a book. And the grade 7s then design a book, write a book, illustrate a book, and usually the book has a moral message, something for the younger students to learn. And so that's done in grade 7. It's going to be, we did it several years ago, so we're bringing it back to English, so I will work with the 3 grade 7 teachers to make sure that gets done for grade 7. Grade 8, for the second year, we're doing it in math, where the students look at global issues such as climate change or wildlife loss or habitat loss, and the students will, within their statistics unit, design a presentation that brings awareness to that global issue. And for the second year in a row, I'll work with the grade 8 teachers to get that done. But a lot of students, especially students who have been in the IB for several years, they're aware of what service action is, and they want to do things other than these 3 items. And so we strongly encourage the students in grades 6, 7, 8 to independently seek out other activities or other things that they can do in this community, in their community, for service action. Service action has 7 learning outcomes, so that by the end of grade 10, they should have all these 7 learning outcomes met, so that so we encourage them to do other activities so that they get these all 7 learning outcomes met by the end of grade 10. For grade 8, we usually aim to accomplish 5 of the learning outcomes by the end of grade 8. And then the other 2 come in grade 9 and 10. Any questions about grades 6, 7, 8? Nope. Grade 9 and 10. So by grade 9, hopefully the students have a great understanding of what service action is. They've had 3 years practice of it, and in grade 9 and 10, they have to do independent full cycles. When I say a full cycle, that means they have to investigate, they have to plan, they have to take action, and then they have to reflect. Whereas if, for example, they volunteer at International Day, they're not really investigating, they're not really planning. They're just going out, taking action, and they're going to reflect on that. But for full cycles, the student has to do all 4 of those steps. So what does a full cycle look for grade 9 and 10? For example, a grade 9 student last year in his community, where he lives, he found younger students that either played golf or were interested in playing golf. He seemed to be a pro golfer himself, so he took those students and taught them or trained them or practiced golf with them. So he would have had to investigate what students there are in his community that would like to play golf or learn. He would have to plan how he's going to teach them or how he's going to lead the practices. Then he's going to do the practices or the lessons every week for a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever he chooses. And then he's going to document that activity either through photographs, video, and he's going to reflect on the whole process. So that's what one full cycle would look like. And we also encourage all across from grades 6 to 10, teachers often have things that they would like done and would like students to volunteer to have that, to help them get that done. And a lot of things like volunteering for International Day or National Day, the students will see morning announcements or announcements on ManageBack, and they just have to contact the teacher and let them know that they are interested. And those can be just activities where they don't do any investigating or planning, or those can be full cycle opportunities. So we really encourage students to, if they see any opportunity that they're interested in, to seek that out. I think that's all. Any questions about service action and MYP? Yes?
Thank you. I would like some explanation about this service action, especially because we are just moving here, join the Raha community, and my daughter in grade 9. So she never did the, the 6 or 7 or 8 service action, like you already put example about. And now she's in grade 9 and she already did her service action. She volunteered to a nursery. So I want to know, is it a full cycle service action, or is it already full cycle service action, or she has to do more? Because every time I ask her, she's kind of confused because this is the new curriculum for her before she's coming from a Cambridge curriculum. Thank you.
So, first of all, in September, I spoke to all students in here. I spoke to grade 9s and I spoke to grade 9s and 10s together, I believe. And so I did a much longer presentation for them, and I explained in more detail, hopefully, about service actions. So hopefully, if she was probably there, so if she, hopefully she understood the presentation and what the requirements were. But to answer your story about the nursery, it depends. So did she herself go out and find a nursery that needed that might need her help? That would be like the investigation stage. And when then she got to the nursery, did she say to the nursery, I'd like to plan an after-school program for you that's going to last for 2 weeks, or I don't know, for every Monday after school I want to come here and work with the kids, or on Saturday, I don't know. Does she plan something so that she would have to investigate where there's a need, she'd plan the activity, then she would take action and document and reflect on that.
Could you talk a little bit about the overseas excursions, how that affects service as action?
So this year, we're seeking to cement the overseas excursions starting this year. So the grade 7, 8s will have a overseas excursion. So they'll all go together, the ones who want to go. And then 9 and 10 will be one group, and they'll go somewhere. And then, which is going to be announced soon. And 11, 12 are going to Cambodia, I believe. And so anytime, so we're embedding the service action in these excursions as well. So if you know, the grade 11, 12s went last year to Cambodia. They helped build, I forget what they did. What did they do in Cambodia last year?
Okay, I was actually there with them. We dug wells and a lot of digging, a lot of getting blisters and digging things, constructing
So they helped a community
toilets.
in Cambodia. And one of the students here in grade 12 also on his own raised money here at school, and then he bought a whole bunch of school supplies, didn't he? Said or Safe or and he himself, he did a whole activity on his own where he brought these supplies over to Cambodia. So the same thing is going to happen this year with grade 7, 8. Wherever they go, they're going to help a community in that country. And 9 and 10, wherever they go, they're going to help a community in that country. And starting here in Abu Dhabi, we're going to investigate and plan what that activity is going to be in that country. So for all those students who sign up for an overseas excursion, that will count as their full cycle. So that's sort of a bonus of going to the overseas excursion.
We have a question here.
How do you monitor whether the students have completed the service actions, and how do you know whether each students have met the requirement of the service actions?
So on Manage Back, if last year it used to be at the top of the students page, this year it's at the bottom of the students page, the service action link, but it's also in the left-hand sidebar. Every morning when I come into work, I open the whole grade 10 group, and I can see if any changes have been made by any student in grade 10 to their service action worksheet, it's called. So I go in and I look to see what that change is and if I have to do anything about it. I might leave a comment, tell the student, okay, great, now finish the service action questions, or before you ask for your teacher to review it, please add a reflection. I follow all 150 students that way. And so I'll look at grade 10, then I'll look at grade 9 in the morning. So I check them all. At some point during the year, I will be sending out messages to the advisory teachers about their students in their class to alert them to what they have to remind the students of in their class. Now is early days, but towards the end of the year, we'll start monitoring more closely to make sure they're getting it done. And so I can see at a glance how many learning outcomes they've met. I can see the reflections. I can see everything at a glance for the whole year group. So I can monitor it quite well that way. And so by the end of grade 9, they will have we have little indicators. We have green flags, which means they're on track. We have a little circle that means to be determined, not sure yet. And then we have the red flag, which means it's a red flag, not on track. I forget what the word is. So I will put those indicators up by the end of the year, and so then you'll see that on the final report. So you want to hope for a green flag on the final report.
So will there be any implications if they don't complete the service actions for all the grades?
Technically, they're not supposed to go to the next year, but I mean, we're not. You want to answer?
I'm sort of speaking about grade 9 and 10 right now. It's about the indicators, and by the end of grade 10, they need to have the 2 full cycles, the 7 learning outcomes met to get their grade 10 certificate. So I do monitor. Last year we were 100%. Yeah, last year all 150 plus kids had the 2 full cycles complete. That's partly because we monitor it very closely so that we're constantly reminding the students that the ones that are behind, that they need to get it done. So yeah, we do monitor it. I will know by the end of grade 9 which grade 9 students have not completed a full cycle. I'll know that. And
Well,
so they'll have a flag.
In grades 6, 7, and 8, it's impossible not to do it because it's part of the curriculum, really. It's grade 9 and 10, they have to do 2 full cycles to be accepted into the diploma program. So it's sort of a checkbox along the way.
Grade 6, 7, 8, when they, for example, grade 6, when they do the science service action in science class, I'll be in their class to make sure they're doing the questions. I'll be there to remind them to do the reflection. I'll be there explaining it so that in grade 7, I won't need to explain it as much. Grade 8, hopefully not all. And then grade 9, they're independent. In grade 6, when they're finished the service action in science class, I will go through Manage Back, make sure that they're all complete. I will give them a green flag. So even in grades 6, 7, 8, look for that green flag on the final report. Because if they've done the one service action in their science class and completed it correctly, I'll give them the green, they're on track. And then start in grade 8 or grade 7, the indicator will be taken off and then the flag will be put back on at the end of grade 7, at the end of grade 8. And then, but going into grade 9, all activities in grade 6, 7, 8, some students have multiple, 15 different activities, not just the 3 that they had to do in grade 6, 7, 8. They do other, like I said, other volunteer things. They do things for OSRA. They do things for their advisory teachers. They do things for their in their community, in their compound or in Alzana or wherever they live. So they do a lot of students do other things besides the 3. And at the end of grade 8, all of that is archived. So that in grade 9 and 10, I and their advisory teachers can see at a glance what they've done in grade 9 and 10. Because it's what they do in grade 9 and 10 that ensures that they get their grade 10 certificate. And I can see at a glance, it's easy for me to see.
Okay, so thanks so much for coming. If you have any other questions, please stay behind. And thank you for attending the 6 sessions. This is the end of the academic side. So hopefully we'll see some of you at Miss Naomi's well-being sessions. Okay, have a lovely day. Bye-bye.